All right, Shalom Israel, giving all praises to Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Rakah Kadash, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, double honors to the apostles, elders, bishops, great millstone, much salutations to the brothers teaching word for the hopeful election to be elect most high will. Said to shorten the time for the elect's sake, we're in the time of the elect work being done, and the contrite spirits, extended hopeful elect, the multitude returning back to the most high blessings. And you see this picture of Trump, that's a sorry ass go fist or whatever, you know what I'm saying? What Trump is throwing up, it's like, is that the president, But, I looked up, we've been telling you about, the prophets been telling you about the trade war and terrorists a long time ago, starting with the apostles, elders on down. We've been telling you about these things coming to pass, coming up, Third World War and all that. MOTB, Jacob's trouble, Um, and, I looked up that, this trade war, China to retaliate with additional 30-40% of tariffs on U.S. goods. Basically, I looked it up and said China is laughing at America, and America's becoming a laughing stock among these nations. That's what's happening, and overall what will happen leading into war, leading to these nations hating the whore, which is Babylon the Great, which is America. And you can see that already unfolding. I mean, America always seemed like they got this, they want to magnify themselves and then tend to make you think that this is a very kind of like a friendly competition, if you will, or just like they're dealing with one nation and not the others, you know what I'm saying, closing in and highlighting these things, dealing with a nation individually. But you remember, China is a part of the BRICS, So, you know, which, but it's a whole thing with America. Now Russia is not a part of the beast, but it's a whole thing with America in itself to be that harlot, that everybody's turning their head at, you know. Um, Now I looked up. We know what terrorism is. We know what trade war is, and it's conflict, and it got to do with economics, you know, and America is basically the cash cow for NATO, extended cash cow, coming from the banking families, which is in London, you know, um, and basically, because this we told you before, this is so-called white man's attempt to have his own paradise right here in America, as a forefront to lead into this new world order. Um, but they see it from afar, like like we said, from over there where the banking family is. They see America, they control America, and you know they see as one of their prime possessions, so to speak, a harlot, like a harlot to a pimp, you know. Uh, but the beauty of America has dwindled in this. She's become an old harlot, basically. Her box is used. Everybody been ran through. I mean, she's been ran through by all these nations. You know, um, so and that's why they listen to the prophets, but they don't want to really, especially our people, they don't want to believe the prophets. But these are things according to prophecy. You know, I looked it up. It says like China has 45 to $50 billion invested in America, which doesn't seem like a lot. But when you're dealing with trade war, and the economic system is running at a high rate, and you're dealing with hyperinflation and all the things and merchandise and goods, imports and exports, then it could have a detrimental effect, and by the means of the people that are affected by the economic moves that they do. So um, and people laugh at I don't know what you would call it, company or whatever, like Timu, but Timu is a $6-7 billion you know company, if you will, you know, and I think it's owned by Chinese, Japanese, whatever. And the same thing with TikTok, and same thing with a lot of these platforms, man. And that's so China is they playing chess, and the Most High is making them play chess. Um, Let me see. According to prophecy, King James Version. It says in the King James Version, it says, according to prophecy refers to events or actions that are in accordance with or predicted by prophecies, which are divine revelations or foretold events in the Bible. King James Version emphasizes the importance of heeding and understanding prophecies as a source of truth and guidance. You know, prophecy in the Bible, prophecy refers to the act of speaking God's message or foretelling future events. It could be understood as a gift from the Holy Spirit, allowing individuals to speak with divine authority. And that's what the prophets speak, authority, because, we're dissecting all this, breaking it down to what it means. And the information is there. We just use the information and we tie it in to prophecy because, and this Bible is the manual. Remember, it's the manual to the earth and a manual to man's living, what he should do, how he should act, how he should move, you know? So these presidents, these political figures, you know, um, all are in this book, concerning the nations, concerning, even individuals. I mean, Nero is not in the word Nero, the name Nero is not in the Bible, but you know, the apostles, elders revealed, and that's what it says in the scriptures that things will be revealed. That according to prophecy, these political figures are the same political figures that were alive during, you know, the time of the Greeks and the time of the Romans, you know, and similar, very similar parallel behaviors, you know. Um, I don't know why people don't understand reincarnation, but Apostle Elders talked about that too, reincarnation of nations too. So, you know, um, these are the developed powers that come to be with, America, Russia, and China, and they all play a part of prophecy. Um, and Yahweh Shai is close because he's the spirit of prophecy. And his prophecy is booming. These are things, events are leading up to prophecies coming to pass, you know. Let me see. Spirit of Prophecy, King James Version. It's one of my favorite scriptures. It says, Revelation 19 and 10. Get that. Revelation 19 and 10, King James Version. It said, and I fell at his feet to worship him. And he said unto me, see thou do it not. I am thy fellow servant and of thy brethren that have the testimony of Yahweh Shai. They ignorantly call Jesus. Well, they ignorantly call Christ. Christ just means anointed, Mashiach, the anointed one. Where, Most High will, Mashiachs, were anointed through his mercy, his grace, through his becoming, enlightened with his word. It says, and I'm the fellow servant and thy brethren that have testimony of Yahweh Shai, worship Yahweh, who they even call just God, because there's many gods and gods in people's mind. People might, but for the testimony of Yahweh Shai is the spirit of prophecy, man. So, as prophecy is very important, and very important concerning these nations, especially now, and everything that's going on. And, whether it be shooting missiles, whether it be talking major SHIT, whether it be like this, trade wars, controversy with the people, because if the people are not right, or, they feel, it could be a, potential civil war. It could be anarchy, and that's what they're not. That's what they got to consider too. So if they're dealing with imports, exports, and over here in with merchandise and goods, if they become expensive, and people can't afford it, and they still got to pay rent, bills, and all that, they're gonna flip out, And America's supposed to be getting great again, which, for people, if they hear that, they be like, well, the most effective thing that citizens could consider is, when it comes to thinking about what that term means, make America great again, they're going to think about how to ease their lives with, and that usually got to do with the economy, because all this stuff is based on, money. The classism in America is based on how much money you have. If you're rich, you're considered, you're considered first class citizens. That means you're contributing some type of way to the economy, because you wouldn't have got there unless you had to put that contribution in. Whether you worked at a job and you climbed up the ladder, worked in a corporate office, and now you work at a business, you climbed up, and now you're a president and CEO of the business. You're making the business greater, by your contribution, your work ethics. So, if there's no, if the economy is failing now, and then the jobs failing there, and it affects the citizens, and it affects the whole country. So I looked up tariff in the etymology, and it says arithmetical table. official list or table of custom duties on goods for import and export. Also, a law regulating import duties. See, a law regulating import duties. So, list of prices, book of rates, you know, information notification making known inventory of fees to be paid, you know, average, you know. So, and then let me look up trade. Oh, I got the definition. Let me look at it right quick and trade. Well, you can look up the word trade and then put war with it. Path, track, course of action. You know, presumably here in reference to a ship, which is now it talks about America when it's destroyed the ships and the merchants and I'm gonna get that stand for office um, that that traded by the sea and all that traded by the sea King James version. It says Revelation 18 and 17. For in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught, and every shipmaster. And what do the ships do? They are part of the import exports. You know, they have shipments of. That's where you get. That's why it's called shipment. When you get a shipment in, you know, it's by ships. They do it by planes and also and trucks and all that. But it's a whole economic grand system. You know, however they can get it over here. Uh, and all the company in ships and sailors and as many as trade by sea stood afar off. See, trade, they go trading. Stood far off and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what city is like unto this great city? America is a great city. Apostles always go into that. It is a city. Wherever state you go into, you gotta when you come here you gotta have citizenship no matter what state you move to. So in a big this is a whole big city. It's a country, but it's a city. You have to have citizenship here. These people in every state in America are called citizens. It says, and they cast dust on their heads and cry, weeping and wailing, saying, alas, alas, that great city wherein we were made rich, all that had ships in the sea by reason of her costliness. For in 1 hour she made desolate. Maybe I'm pretty sure China's listened to the prophecies of the prophets. I'm talking about, you know, groups like Great Millstone. You know, pretty sure Russia does too, and all these all these political figures around the world, senators, whether they be senators, governors, whatever, presidents, even the top CEOs of these companies, these mega companies, you know, that and a lot of it goes back to, you know, well, all of it really. I mean, they rule the world. Go back to the banking families, but they have branches, you know, and they have what do you call it? Shares, and they used to call sharecroppers back then, but now they, shares into the stock market and all that. If you look at movies like Wolf of Wall Street, you know, so that's why a lot of these companies that major companies, big companies, like businesses like Walmart, Costco, they have a big, you know, other companies are invested in them, you know, through shares or through whatever business deals or transactions they have, or trades or whatever they have, and so it's harder to if you wanted to sue those companies, those businesses is hard because they got so much support, from other company, other business, other you know uh, top business owners that work together with their money and their business, opposed to a so-called black man that has a pop mom and pop store, you know, and soon as his business is attacked or that it goes down, you know. So these so-called lasting companies, businesses, restaurants, even fast food places, just like McDonald's. You could hear about McDonald's every day about human food being in human, what you call it, remains being in the food or whatever, and it'll still be the top one, a $1 billion uh, company or whatever. You know, same thing with Taco Bell. Same thing with all these other places. They might found something in the food that was disgusting to a regular, and their business still goes on. You let that be Jake, his business going under. So these are superpowers that we're dealing with, that we're seeing. So when they say the bigger you are, the harder you fall. Well, that's going to happen. That's what's going to happen to America. Um, and so many people are affected by that, and businesses and countries affected by that, by the investments in America. Like I said, China alone got $50 billion invested in America, and that might just be uh, you know trying to guess at it, but even dealing with China being a part of the BRICS, I would think that's even more of something to consider because how they're established in the power system. You know, so America has to be smart about how they move when they're dealing with these other countries. It says of a reason of her costliness, talking about America, for in 1 hour she is made desolate, man. Rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets. Yeah, we're gonna rejoice, because this is, like we said, this is America has been great and has influenced, has been a great part of the so-called Negro, Latino, Native American downfall and division and oppression and you know hang up when it even going into spirituality. You know, they put this Cedric Bourget character up. They finessed our people with these church going Bible bonehead Christians to guide our people, and even in what you call it, even in a sense of when it comes to dealing with politics. Uh, even with Malcolm X, he was a Muslim, but he got into politics. You know, he became a political figure. And even with Martin Luther King, those were two iconic characters that influenced our people a lot. You know, and set division uh, among our people. Because you could see them shaking hands, uh, and all for the cause of black men, uh, trying to link up with another black man for the sake of we all need to come together. We're That's the PowerPoint of it all. But it says in the Bible too, if two can't come together, if they don't agree, they can't walk together. You know, like the IUIC thing, you can't come together with Muslims, man. It says, "For Yahweh hath avenged you on her." So, and they and a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone, and cast it into the sea, saying, "Thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all, man." So America's going to be utterly destroyed, you know, and the countries are going to wail at her because they had investment. They had investment in her. They had belief in America. She's right now the leading superpower, you know, and the banking families know this. They got investments because overall it's a Edomite driven economy. Even though they have, you know, differences, even they have, um, their sex, their, you know, as far as location, as far as this country doing this state doing this, it's Edom is going for that, that new world order, um, to remain in power. Because when you think about it, all these nations, even when you're dealing with the BRICS, it's dealing with nations. It's dealing with, they're not, even the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, and all them. Those are, of course, countries, but those are nations of people. You know, so and the Most High, it said in the scripture, nation shall come against nation. You know, and the Most High is dividing all this stuff. He's dividing Edom. You know, it says, did I read that? That the nation, these shall hate the whore. These shall hate the whore, King James Version. So you got, and the 10 horns, let me see, 15. Revelation 17. Says, and he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore. And we go into those 10 horns all the time, which go into the 7 heads, which is French, Russia, Britain, Germany Major, Germany Minor, Spain, and it's always that one. And Greece, if I said that already. Let me see. French, Britain, Spain, Germany Major, Germany Minor, and Greeks, the Romans. And it's the last leg of Rome, So America right here, America. So you have those 10 horns going into, Spain, Portugal, you know, um, the Netherlands, you know, uh, that used to be the Visigoths, Ostrogoths, the Lamberts. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that right. Anglo-Saxons, but now today, so it's developed into a beast. You know, these countries, and they all shall hate the whore. And America's kind of like the new founding uh, system of what seemed to be great and a great ideal, Even going back to Christopher Columbus, which now they say, well, look, when America was thriving, she was great, you know, and they said, well, damn, we're going to invest in America. Look at how great she's become. The beauty, you know, and now it's not that way. That's why it's a term that Trump says, or whatever you want to call it, phrase, whatever if he call it queen, make America great again. So in America, they're finding out how this deceitful, tricky America is. They said the nation was drunk off the wine of her fornication. You know, meaning her philosophical ways of dealing with matters, of handling matters, and her bannering, suggestions at these so-called grand meetings, these summits, and they say, okay, I see how that could be possible, you know. But